Good evening. It's truly great for me to be back in a country that I love. A country that has moved from being a slow follower to a fast innovator on a global scale. Today's panel is really about how do we bring to life what the Prime Minister and what Ms. Trump talked about earlier in terms of a vision for how we can change the US, change India, and change the world. When I originally got asked to speak on this topic, I got very excited. And I said, my topic's going to be about startups. I know how we do this, and I know how we do it well. And then I realized how far India has come. How far India has come in the last 3 years when I was honored to be probably the biggest bull about India's future. And how in the most recent publications, India is projected to grow year over year by over 10% GDP growth for the next decade. The vision of your Prime Minister is truly coming true. And from the US perspective, we see the US for the first time in a decade at the strongest economic growth quarter over quarter that we've seen. You see job creation going very well. And so it would be so easy to say, let's just continue to do what we are and not have the courage to change. But the courage to change when you have an opportunity in front of you is the most important thing you can do. I originally thought startups would be the indication of future economic growth and employment. I was wrong. Gender equality can have the most economic benefit for the future of all the countries in this room. The math is amazing. The McKinsey report that I saw said $12 trillion by 2025. That's almost the economy of the US. And it said this would be divided, if you looked at the countries, between India at 700 billion, you look at the US at 3 trillion, Europe at 2 trillion, Africa and the Middle East at 1 trillion. And it is, if we do this right, when you think about great basic GDP growth, GDP is nothing more than additions to the labor force, about capital investment and innovation. I think this is a chance to make history. I think it's not a chance to have a good discussion on how we can change gender equality, but really it's an inflection point for changing it around the world. And that's really what this topic is about today. Just to give you some numbers though, Ms. Trump referred to a couple of these earlier. Basically, when you look at the investment in startups, only 1/3 of the women capability in terms of getting venture capital and angel investment compared to their male counterparts gets approved. When a woman starts a business, you're talking about only about 1/3 of the capital to half the capital that a male counterpart would do for the same business. And the numbers are abysmal in terms of where we are, even though we're showing growth. Only 19% of the companies around the world over $1 million in sales have women entrepreneurs at the leadership role for it. So I really think this is a chance to dream together, a chance to say what is really possible for the future, a chance to have courage to change and to challenge each other. And at the end of the night, we're going to ask you, each of you, to say, what can you do different in this next year to not make incremental improvement, but make this an inflection point that Prime Minister Modi referred to earlier. I have an amazing panel with me today. I want to first invite Marcus Wellenberg to come up and join me. Marcus, for those of you who know him, comes out of Sweden. He's the chairman of one of the top banks in Europe, the Nordic countries. The Nordic countries have been the most advanced in terms of gender participation at the board level, etc. He has a good feel for where is the European market, and a lot of the changes that they have, he knows where we need to go. So Marcus, if you're back there, please come and join me. The second person to join me is a person that I know and care about very greatly. She basically has been a great friend for many, many years. And Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, she, when I first met her, was WTO negotiator. She is a tough negotiator, but she also knows how to make things happen. as literally the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, she was responsible for Prime Minister Modi's programs to really drive through Startup India and manufacture in India. She has an ability to instill confidence. She has an ability to bring people together, and now is one of the 5 top women defense ministers around the world. Madam Minister, if you please come and join us as well. The next individual is the person that we talked about earlier, and I want to tell you a little bit more human side about Miss Ivanka. When I talked to her on the phone about this panel, she literally was teaching me what was possible, how to make changes. She's not only a world-renowned business leader, she honestly cares so much about making a difference. She's a mother, she's a TV personality, she's a fashion designer, she's been successful in many of the challenges in her life. But this is an area that she leads by example in, not just in her words, but also in her actions. So Ms. Trump, would you please join us? And finally, representing the Africa, Middle East area is an individual I did not know before tonight, but I honestly feel like I've now known her for a very long time. She is a leader, the first Black leader of an aviation company, a petroleum company in South Africa. As a young lady, she had the imagination of wanting to do this. She had no fear in achieving goals that others would hesitate about and not be able to perhaps achieve. And yet when she had the chance, she turned it completely around. Please join me in welcoming Sibonile G. Salmabo. Please. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, John.
This will be fun.
Thank you.
I'm going to switch you to right here if I could. Thank you. Please. Gotcha. So if I may start off with you, Ms. Trump, you watch what is occurring in the world. You have a passion for this. It'd be so easy with the economy of the U.S. going well, the tax reforms changing, et cetera, not to have the courage to make this change. Why is the administration doing this? Why is it so important to you personally? And let me also ask a double question. What advice would you have for the young women entrepreneurs in the audience in terms of kind of lessons learned? Because you've come through a male-dominated world and done remarkably well. What would be your thoughts on both topics?
Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you, John. Can you hear me? Hello? Better? Hello? Thank you, John, and thank you for all that you've done to inspire so many entrepreneurs, men, female alike, and for participating in... Hello?
Testing on the mic, please.
Hello? Thank you. And for participating in this dynamic panel. We appreciate it. I was so excited to come here to Hyderabad, this center of innovation, and to have the opportunity to meet with so many entrepreneurs from all over the world who are deeply inspired by their own individual mission. And that to me is one of the most incredible things. And ultimately, now in this role in government that I'm so privileged to have, that's my desire, to create an opportunity for more people to have the advantages that I've been so fortunate to have. I talked about the unique challenges that face female entrepreneurs, the lack of adequate access to capital, to networks, to mentorship, and in some countries to equitable laws. These are challenges we can solve for by talking about the problems, by working together, by combining the thought leadership of those in the private sector and here in this room today with smart government policy that enables all of our country's citizens to thrive. So I am incredibly optimistic 11 months into my time in the Trump administration. I see firsthand how we're creating a climate to fuel the growth of business, to reduce barriers to new entrepreneurs who are thinking about whether or not they're going to engage. So you asked earlier about my advice. You just have to do it. You just have to do it. I think too often there's a myth that everyone who started a business was 100% sure and had 100% belief that that business would succeed. It's not true. Many people started businesses on the side while continuing their primary job until they got the confidence that it was going to work. Many waited for several years. Many pivoted out of their existing business into another. Many failed to come back again. So to those aspiring entrepreneurs who are in this audience today and are wondering if you have what it takes, if you are deeply passionate about the company you want to start, if you're deeply passionate about your vision to create change and to create a product or service that will better the world, just go do it. Just go do it. No time like the present.
Minister Sitaranam, you have an amazing record in your country here in India of women being successful in politics, in business, and the arts. What is the magic here? If you look at your Security Council, 2 of the 4 of you are women. You look at many